What's going on, folks? I am Goat. Welcome back to Warframe. Hello, hello, hello. So I want to cover probably one of the most loaded questions I think I've ever fucking seen that have popped to this game, but it has some validity. I keep seeing posts about people saying Warframe is easy, and then other people in the comments disputing it, or vice versa. People saying, oh my god, this game is so hard. Which usually it's a newer player that says it. But people, claiming that the game is really hard, and then people automatically just coming in and shitting all over them and refuting it in the comments. But the question still stands. Is Warframe easy? And the truth of it is that Warframe isn't hard. Okay? I'm not going to say that it's easy, but this is a prime example of how to hit the easy button in Warframe. Okay? Like, here, hold on. You want to see the real easy button? Where is that motherfucker? Here. And then we'll come over here and we'll do this. And then we'll do that. That's the ultimate easy button right there. You want the easy button? That's the easy button. Incarnate Horde, Incarnate Dual Tox Assist, Codepath Assist on an influence build, super easy button. Now, does it need to be influence? No. Because there is some stuff that is, not so great for influence, but that's kind of higher level shit. Glade Prime, good option. I mean, that's definitely an option. Glade Prime, here we go. Bingo bongo. There you go. That's super easy button. Like, seriously. Is Warframe easy? It can be. Getting to the point of Warframe being easy, that's the point that's a little different. Because what ends up happening is somebody finds a frame that they either aesthetically like or they like the ability casting from or something like that. I'll use a perfect example of one that I see quite often that people fall in love with early, and then they get to the Steel Path and they go, bro, what the fuck? Okay? Perfect example is Ember. Got this cool heirloom skin. She's the Fire Queen. She got the ass for days. I mean, there's just like a lot to like about Ember. Okay, there really is. Not just the aesthetics, but there is a lot to like about Ember. Just the general gameplay loop behind what she does is great on the base star chart. When you get into the Steel Path, there becomes a much more inclusive way to play Ember to find not just survivability, because survivability is definitely there, but energy economy, usefulness of the gameplay, and so on. Is Ember an easy frame to play on the Steel Path? If you've got the proper build, sure. If you don't have the proper build, Ember feels like a chore to play on the Steel Path. Much so like Oberon. Oberon's another one. Very, very interesting frame. Has a really, really cool gameplay loop, but Oberon is in dire need of a rework, first of all. And secondly, I just find that Oberon is a real interesting character to play. Great support frame, pretty decent solo frame, has some ways to completely survive the fuck out of what the Steel Path does, but it also has some problems, right? But is Oberon easy? I would say in the grand scheme of things, yeah, Oberon's not hard. How do you find the understanding of what is easy and what is hard, right? That's where you find your own personal meta, right? Any frame can be really fucking good or really, really bad, just depending on what you're doing. So first you have to see what the frame does, and then you have to understand how to build the frame to fit your style. I'll be the last motherfucker out there to tell you that, there's a perfect style of gameplay or build for every single player. Like, I'm sure people on my Trinity build are going to look at this and go, no, I don't like that. Why does that work? But if you just look at, and yes, it's a subsume with nourish, but if you just look at what the frame does, that tells you a lot about how you have to build a frame. So you've got a passive that uses 50% of Trinity's, or they, allies in affinity range gain 50% of Trinity's max health or max energy as health. So basically, as long as you've got good energy, they get half of that as health. That's a really, really good, buff to your allies. It's great. If you run her solo, it's totally fine as well. Take the first ability out of the equation. You got Energy Vampire, using it in Vampire Leech. Lots of good going on there. I like how it says show base stats. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I was apparently I'm fucking blind. But basically, make energy, make over shields with Vampire Leech. You know, Link, damage redirection, coupled with armor stripping, using Abating Link. And then just general re-heal and damage reduction. I mean, there's a lot to like about how Trinity does it, but if you build her improperly, so let's say you go into I want a whole bunch of ability strength and a shit ton of ability range, but I don't really give a fuck about, energy economy, and I don't care about duration. Oh, is that a mistake? From my perspective, that's a huge mistake, because her durations are not all that forgiving to begin with. So if you tank out duration, you're going to be recasting like a motherfucker. Now, what that does play into is shield gating, but with a frame like Trinity, do you really need to shield gate a lot? Not really. She's constantly able to re-heal herself, redirect a ton of energy, reduce a bunch of energy, and make her own energy as it is. Or damage, I should say. But then make her own energy in the process. So it's like, do you want negative duration on a frame that lives and dies by duration? Probably not. Another one that a lot of people, again, boring as shit. Like if you're going to try to take her in a long mission, God be with you, because man, you're going to be spam crouching like a motherfucker. Octavia. Octavia is a broken ass frame. Hard as fuck to die with because nobody can see your ass. But a couple of simple mistakes or not understanding how to min-max demand accord, what kind of things that Octavia really, really wants in comparison to the things you can get away with not needing, becomes very problematic. Garuda is another perfect example. I still, to this day, find that Gloom is a better option than Blood Altar because it gives you mobility. And do you need to use Garuda Prime Talons? Absolutely not. You don't. You can put whatever fucking melee you want to on her. I personally enjoy the Talons. If they're gonna be in my goddamn line of sight, as far as, like, if you put a melee on, I wish they would disappear. Call me crazy, it's just an aesthetic thing. If I can't use them, why the fuck are they sticking off her arms at that point? I don't need them. So get them out of my damn face and let me do my job, right? So, but I just personally find that, having a lifesteal ability compared to just this general stabbed enemy that's sitting there healing me in an area is a much more functional way to my playstyle. But I see a ton of people running Blood Altar, and I'm so not mad at it, because I get it. I really do. I 100% get it. There's so many different ways to build things. You can run base kits. I run base kits for Haro, Lavos, Gauss, Temple, Dante. I've got a base build for Calervo. Got a base build for Nova. Caliban. I mean, you name it. I've got base builds on a few of these motherfuckers just because they work. Corvex is another one. Baruch, you can absolutely get away with running the base build, but there's better ways to go about that. Technically, Mesa, you can run base build and it's fine. Valkyr, yet to be seen. Just saying. Citrine, you can 100% run a base build on. I just think I just have a silly ass build that I just shared not long ago. For that, so... But that's the thing, is like, how difficult do you want to make it? It's not a matter of if Warframe is easy or not. It's how difficult do you want to make it? Because if you fight against what a frame does, you're going to make life very difficult. If you play into the strengths of not just what the Warframe can do, but also what the Warframe can play like with your playstyle, you're really, really, really going to find that a lot of things get a lot easier. But don't ever determine your success on casual gameplay. I will say that. Run some endurance. I'm not saying you need to go to level cap any of that. But if you really want to see just how successful your builds are, take yourself up to like level 3000. That's going to tell you really quickly, if your builds are as good as you think they are, or if you're pretty comfortable just being a casual player. Because if you're like me and you're just comfortable being a casual player, there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. There's a lot of ways to do casual play that's a lot of fun. But I know that I just did the whole, what's the point in level cap? And if you're determining your frame's success rate by going to level cap, that's kind of not really the way to do it, because the frame's success is 100% based on how you play. If you're comfortable with that play style, level cap shouldn't have anything to do with it. Because what works in casual play a lot of the times doesn't work when you start playing towards level cap. There's some builds that do 100%. There are some builds that absolutely will stand up and just be gods at level cap. But there are also plenty of builds that aren't, there's plenty of builds that just can't do it. So I guess to really truly, in my personal opinion, answer the question of, is Warframe an easy game to play? Once you figure out your preferred play style in the game, in regards to the movement mechanics, the base systems of the game, how, damages work, how enemies' armor, and health works and everything else, yeah, Warframe's pretty easy. It's how much you want to fight the systems, or not read up on the systems, or not educate yourself on the systems. That's where the problems start rising up, and where Warframe starts to feel really fucking hard. It's because you're bucking the base design of the system. Now, I do have to preface this in the ending of this video by saying I'm not pointing this at new players, okay? Not in any way am I pointing this at new players, because new players are still in the process of learning. So that's a whole different ball of wax. But if you're at the point of like mastery 20 and you're still struggling, you've just, let's say you're mastery 20, you've just gotten yourself to the steel path, you finally hit that comfort zone where you're like, okay, I feel like I'm good enough, and you hit steel path and you're just like, whoa. Normal reaction, first of all, because most people at this point that get to mastery 20, they're just first stepping into steel path. They probably haven't done really any long endurance type runs, even at base star chart. And so going into something that is plus 100 level, plus 250% every kind of defense and damage output, and you're sitting there taking base star chart builds against that, sometimes they work because you've overbuilt what you're doing. Most of the time, if you've just kind of gone by the school of hard knocks, kind of like I did, you'll walk into the steel path and just absolutely get smacked in the fucking face, feeling like you're a god among men, and walking out feeling like a toddler. So it really just comes down to like all these frame build videos that I do. Every single one of these frame build videos that I'm doing are for casual play. They're absolutely not meant for steel paths. I mean, or like for like level cap or super high endurance. There are some that obviously can, just because of what the frames do. Revenant, Nezha, Citrine, Trinity, Nova, Dante, Protea, Rhino, Haro, I don't know if I said Regara, Ureli. I mean, there's, Temple, Nidus, there's a ton of frames, Mag, Saren, Baruch. I mean, there's plenty of frames that can go very, very high level without a ton of crazy, crazy build knowledge going into it. But you do have to synergize your weaponry, and sometimes you have to synergize the frame with its, exalted or pseudo exalted weapon just in itself, just to make it highly functional, because that's what the frame is going to want to lean on. So just gain some knowledge in the game. That's the best advice I could possibly give to make the game not feel hard. Reliance on solely using YouTube videos is one thing that I always tell people. If you've established your own type of gameplay, it's great to test other people's ideas on builds. That's an awesome thing. But if you're going onto YouTube and seeing level cap 9999, this is awesome, this nukes, you got to be worried about that shit, because if you've never done it, you have to be extremely thorough on the information that's being given So you have to know every single little nuanced thing that these people are doing to get to that point. Because if you don't understand how their operator is working with their frame and how their weapons are synergized with their builds, you know, and what the builds are for every one of the weapons that they're using and so on and so forth, and what, you know, like level of abilities that they're casting at different times. If somebody isn't breaking down to that point, if you just throw a frame build on and go, well, I know my weapons, so I'm going to put those on here, and damn the torpedoes, let's just get after it, you're probably going to die. Okay. So don't just completely immerse yourself into YouTube videos. Sure, test a build. If it's not going to completely screw up your, you know, your Forma setup, test a build. You know, see if it works for you. Then test it against some tankier shit. And if it still works for you, see if other things work. You know, look at what operators can do, what the arcanes can do for you, all so on and so forth. Like, there's a lot of stuff that comes into play with just how good, you know, focus schools, you know, operator arcanes, amps. I mean, there is a ton of shit. You know, hell, even blessings. Doing a damage blessing is just giving flat damage. Okay? So getting a damage blessing at a relay in itself is a buff when you're going up into endurance stuff. So those are all things you have to think about. Just putting it out there. So, yeah, I mean, take it for what it is. Is Warframe hard? No. Can you make Warframe hard for yourself? Absolutely you can. But it comes down to a point of education. That's truthfully my personal opinion. That's just what it is. It just comes down to whether you teach yourself or you let, you know, YouTube or Twitch or anything else help teach you. Either way is fine. I've just personally found from my experience, teaching myself is just a really good way to go. So that's it. Thanks very much for watching. As always, we'll catch you in the next one, all right?